Alright, so I thought I would do a post-fight for Canelo and Triple G. I appreciate this is after the fact, and maybe it's not really something that people might necessarily want to see, but I had a couple of comments asking what my thoughts were on the fight. And I think first and foremost, if we take the kind of individual fan fighters or fans of a specific fighter out of the equation and look at the spectacle, the second fight was incredible. It's very rare that a rematch eclipses the original. There aren't many. There are a few examples in history, but there aren't many. And this was everything I think we thought the first fight might have been. Maybe the kind of final few rounds of the first fight showed suggestions of this, or certainly the 12th. But this was just end to end, back and forth, non-stop, boxing, in my opinion, at some of the very highest levels. The speed and the accuracy of some of these guys, where it was incredible. I appreciate there were a couple of wide misses from Canelo, but I think collectively speaking, this was an excellent fight. So I think it's very important to state that, regardless of where your bias lay, it was an excellent fight. Having said that, I'm going to upset at least one party of people here, maybe both parties actually. When I watched the fight live, and when I say live, I mean, as it was happening, and I had it for Canelo. I didn't score the fight, but I thought, from what I was seeing, I thought Canelo won the fight. However, before I get into that justification, I've maybe kind of triggered all the Triple G supporters and believers. I've since watched the fight and I scored it a draw. Entirely even. But let me kind of go back to my kind of initial point. The reason I thought Canelo won the fight, and the reason I imagine the judges thought he won the fight, was because it's very difficult to look past the fact that Triple G was given everything he asked for. Canelo came to the fight giving them exactly, when I say them I mean Abel Sanchez and Triple G, exactly what they asked for. He stood in the middle of the ring and he was prepared to trade with Triple G. This has never happened before, and it probably will never happen again. I don't think we can appreciate just how hard Triple G hits. Look back at his resume. Canelo is so good, and he was so absolutely confident in his own ability to dodge and slip and move, and maybe his chin, that he was willing to stand and fight. Now that was strike one. that spoke volumes. Like, wow, Canelo was fighting their fight. What's even more surprising was that Triple G was the one that sidestepped away from that. Maybe even backpedaled in some cases. And if you notice, when they first fight initially, it's toe-to-toe. And Triple G is the one that says, no, I can't win the fight like this. I don't want to fight like this. I'm going to move off to the side. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't win a fight on the back foot. And it's unfair to say that Triple G was on the back foot. But he was always the one kind of breaking the momentum, stepping away from the middle of the ring. So of the two, Canelo was without doubt, for 85% of the fight, the aggressor. Again, that's a very difficult spectacle to look past. Two different spectacles. One that Canelo was willing to trade, and two, it was Triple G that was unwilling to trade. And I think those facts combined makes for a compelling case in a fight that's razor thin. Now, as if the kind of populace wasn't split between Triple G and Canelo enough, the manner in which they both fought was entirely different. Triple G was working behind a jab, and Canelo was really looking to kind of, he had a jab, but he was looking to throw power punches. Now, again, it really depends what you like. I've always heard kind of veteran boxers say, at the end of the fight, who would you rather be? I don't think there's a man, woman, or child on the planet that would have preferred to be Triple G at the end of this fight. His face was a mess. And I know people are going to say, oh, look how someone's face looks like at the end of a fight. It has no bearing on what happened. Well, first off, it does. All right, your face doesn't mark up with taking one punch in the face like that. His whole face, everywhere, was bloodied and red. But agreed that isn't how you win a fight, by doing damage to someone's face. I know that. But that doesn't, again, detract from the fact that he was able to land these punches. A lot of Triple G's jabs, and his jab was beautiful, and I don't want to discredit that. His jab was absolutely beautiful. But I don't think it was doing anywhere near as much damage as... Well, it wasn't doing that much damage. I don't really care what your bone structure looks like. If you're being jabbed in the face by one of the hardest punchers on the planet, if it's landing at kind of full snap, it's going to do damage. Landing as many as he did. Such a large percentage of Gennady Golovkin's punches were jabs, you'd expect to see some severe marking on Canelo. I think Canelo's judge of distance was absolutely perfect. The big gash that he had over his eye, I don't know if that was a headbutt or a punch, but either way, it still wasn't very pretty. But with the exception of that, I think in the press conference the next day he had a little bit of kind of puffiness around his eyes. But again, looking at the two of them, I think it's fair to say that Gennady took a lot more damage than Canelo did. And we're also forgetting the fact that a lot of Canelo's punches were to the body. Having said that, having said all of that, Canelo was the one that was hurt. If anybody was going to get knocked out in the fight, at any point, it was Canelo. If anybody looked as in any trouble, it was Canelo. Triple G didn't look phased or hurt at any point. He looked a little bit... I mean, I didn't really see this, but a lot of the commentators and the kind of comment sections on the various videos are saying Triple G looked like an old man. I didn't really see that. I just saw him look like a man that was having to think about every single move he made. I think he was surprised. They didn't expect Canelo to come out and fight like this. And I think full credit to Triple G for being able to make the adjustment, to realizing in himself that, okay, I think if I want to win this fight, I need to do it this way. And if what people were saying that he looked old kind of in the middle rounds, if that was true and he stood and fought what ultimately was Canelo's fight, maybe he would have got knocked out. And maybe Triple G recognized that. So again, full credit for making, I guess, what is the adjustment, and for being successful at it. I'm sure he didn't have a lot of time, if maybe any practice in camp. You camp for 3 months to work on routine, fitness, and your strategy. I don't think they worked on that strategy whatsoever. I don't think they would ever even entered the idea of working sideways on the back foot game. I mean, who would have anticipated that? Abel Sanchez certainly wouldn't have, because this is the fight that he was asking for. They probably trained maybe half and half, maybe half of Canelo running away, backpedaling. But again, full credit Triple G. I think he was very elusive, but not as elusive as some of the Canelo misses made him look. Again, if you boil it back to this, the punch stance, Canelo was more accurate than Triple G was. Canelo missed far less than Triple G did. To me, it felt like that when Canelo did miss, he missed by a wide margin with these kind of huge uppercuts that hit thin air. But again, the punch stats kind of speak for themselves, that Canelo was entirely more accurate. And remember, it's meant to be a lot harder to land power punches than it is a jab. So, but I honestly think a draw is fair. I think both guys gave and fought at an absolute elite level. It was a joy to watch, and I felt bad for anyone that was emotionally invested either side, because I think the result felt unfulfilling for both. The Canelo fans felt like no one's giving their guy credit, and the Triple G fans felt like this is 2 fights in a row that we've outboxed this guy, we've beat this guy up, and we haven't been given a decision. I think over time the marring of the result will be forgotten about, and what will be remembered as a spectacle. Which is what boxing should be about. It was a spectacle. It was as I said, for a rematch. I mean, I don't think I remember any rematches being as tasty as that. Rafael Marquez and Israel Vasquez. There'll be a few hardcores shaking their heads, thinking, "Oh my God!" I think it was 4 times they fought. 4th fight wasn't really much of a fight, but wow, the trilogy was just oh. For anyone that hasn't seen that, Rafael Marquez is the brother of the Marquez that knocked out Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Israel Vasquez is a tough. Their 3 fights were incredible. Go and watch them. They're probably on YouTube. Well, they are on YouTube because I've seen them a load of times. But yeah, there aren't many examples of rematches even matching the first fight, let alone surpassing. So again, I would encourage everyone to try and distance themselves from the emotion of picking a boxer, or even sometimes betting. I didn't bet on this fight because I can find that, and I don't bet in huge amounts. I bet more for ego, to say, look, I told you I knew what I'm talking about, I was right, kind of thing. But when I bet, I immediately have a bias towards that boxer, or most of the time, unless something remarkable happens that kind of turns this way of the fight and kind of my perspective. So, but I made a conscious decision not to bet on this fight, and I'm so glad I didn't. I just got to sit back and enjoy every second of every round. It was boxing at the highest level, the hardest, fastest middleweights, just punching holes through each other. Remarkable, truly remarkable. I think it's a draw. By that measure, Triple G should still be champion because obviously the champion retains. But I have no issue. See, my immediate thoughts was Canelo won the fight by a round only. Just as I said, because he took the fight to Triple G and he was very effective at it. He landed more power punches. The jab didn't seem to trouble Canelo. I mean, it was snapping his head back, but most of the time it was just kind of touching his face. As I said, you would expect to see the lips swelling. And I don't care what genetics you have. If somebody punches you in the mouth, your lips are going to swell. You know, and I just didn't feel that the jab was doing as much damage as the amount of jabs landed would seem to suggest. Not that they weren't good, but again, I would rather have been Canelo in the fight than Triple G, for sure. But props to both fighters. I think that's enough. It kind of feels like I'm beating a dead horse, but a few people had asked what I thought about the fight. I called it a draw. Excellent fight. I have no issue if you had Gennady winning. I had no issue if you had Canelo winning. I said, watching it first time round, I had Canelo. Second time round, I think a draw is a fair decision. Would I want to see a third fight? I don't really have a desire to see a third fight because I don't think it can show us anything new that the second fight didn't, unless Gennady has slipped further. I think Canelo will only get stronger the next couple of years. Gennady's probably on a very downward kind of hill of decline. I don't think he's declined anywhere near as much as commentators or some people were beginning to suggest, that he was knocking everyone out kind of 5 years ago in much more dramatic fashion, but the level of opposition wasn't Canelo. I think if you were to take Gennady 5 years ago with the current Canelo, I think the fight would look very, very similar. I don't think Gennady has declined that much at all. I just think his level of opposition has increased significantly. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks, and I'll talk to you again soon.